Actually dumps it into the corner. Behind the net now. Steve Gray comes up with it. Back to Chazon. Chazon will just wrist it into the corner.
Got a penalty being called, Paul. Against the Panthers again. They'll go 2-man short. We'll have a 5-on-3 situation.
Well, we had these two clubs last year, Joe, on the Cable 10, and we had a real barn burner. I don't know whether you remember it.
Oh, I do, Paul. I definitely remember that one.
It was a 6-all tie going into just the dying seconds of the game, and it was end-to-end action. And there were several chances by both clubs to try and win.
It was Canopy came up on top, I believe.
No, it did end up in a 6-all tie.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of another game, Paul, where they scored with a few seconds left. It may have been the same two teams as well.
Well, the Canopy did have a chance at the last second of the game, and he flicked it over top of the net. Okay, number 10 now comes up the blue line. Puts it over to Stever now. Stever puts back the point. Number 4 takes a hard shot. Colantino mishandled it. I thought it was going in, but it went behind the net. Into the slot. Another shot, and Colantino deflects that one into the screen. Now into the corner. Streets now all over him. They got a 5-on-3 situation. Puts on a good move. Number 4 brings it right in. Takes a shot. Oh, another deflection off the glove of the Canopy player. 26 dumps it in. Henderson now putting on some moves. Those fancy colored shorts. He dumps that one into the bench area, and we'll have a face-off.
Well, we've got 6 minutes left in this third period.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get the Streets get a couple goals, maybe get some stop time, buy themselves some time is what they'd be doing.
How many do they need, Paul? 1 or 2 before it stops?
They got to get at least. Actually, they got to get 2. It's got to be 7-5 before stop time, and there's one that just trickled by Colantino behind him, but he managed to cover up before it rolled over the line.
I think not too long ago on that last flurry that Streets had on Colantino, I think he might have taken a shot in the throat area, Paul. It looked like his face mask just kind of popped up a little bit and then back onto his head.
Well, I just happened to notice, Joe, that the Streets Marauders are going with their top players. They've got 2 or 3 guys riding the pine right now that aren't even playing, and they're just going with the Gunners right now. They want to win this game. They're not fooling around. Number 21 for the Panthers fights for it. 19 McMillan comes up with it. Center comes up the blue line. Fires over to Gray. Gray right in. He shoots. Oh, he gets robbed by Colantino, and Steve, you can see the disgust on his face. He just can't believe it.
And that was.
I don't even think Colantino knew he had the ball.
Well, you know, I mean, call it what you will, but he definitely was in the right spot at the right time.
Okay, you just see them fighting for that face-off. The Panthers managed to come up with it and dump it down. Sketchley now. See these defensemen back out there. Intercepted by Crozier. Right in front of Henderson. Crozier now back up to 21. He fires at it. A hard shot. Henderson gets the rebound. Digs away at it.
They really
covers up.
Yeah, Panthers know how to find that open man. And even though number 21 put his stick up for the pass in the high slot area there, he would have got that ball regardless whether he called for it or not. That's where it was going.
As we get on here into the game, Joe, it's tough to figure out our Sport Cup player of the game right now.
Let me think about it for a while, Paul.
Okay. Steve Gray at the side of the net has another chance, and it's deflected into the corner by Colantino. Big John Gaoki has a couple points here tonight. He moves down, takes a shot right in on goal. His brother Dan Gaoki right in front of his brother John. Steve Crozier now goes in the corner, tries to get it out to the slot area. There's 2 of them waiting there. Kerry Chazon intercepts, makes a nice nifty move there. Off the boards, number 4. Dumps it in. Smith, he puts it in. Dan Gaoki trying to get Sketchley, pardon me. Sketchley doing some great forechecking. Okay, good move there by Dan Gaoki. He makes a nice shot, gets the rebound. They're all over it. Phil Gray covers up. Okay, 2:59 here left in the third period. We got running time because the score reads 7-3. Canopy Panthers over Streets Marauders. Okay, with Walter Steffler coming down. Hits the blue line. Winds up, takes a shot. Hard shot. Colantino fumbled with it and deflected again into the corner. Colantino coming with a big game here tonight. Getting some breaks. Except at 26. Read that one, but big John Gaoki goes in the corner for it. Number 8 fights for it. Dumps it along the boards. Walter Steffler goes after it. Tom Stever now picks it up at his own blue line. He'll try and bring it out. Walter Steffler now stops, winds up a hard shot, and it's waited just maybe a second too long, and then the defenseman slid down and blocked it. So that one went out of play. We'll have a stoppage of play here. Face-off will be to the right of Colantino. Desperately need some quick goals here. Streets Marauders getting into the last 2 minutes here of the final period. Unless, of course, we did see overtime, but it's looking more and more doubtful. 21 for the Panthers now. Breaks in the left wing. Takes a look, fires. He scores. I don't know whether Phil Gray over him now. A minute left in the game. Right in front of the net. They dig away at it. It's put it in, however. I guess it's going to count. What is this? Okay, I guess it's no goal. That was whistled down, so the score still reads 8-3. The Canopy Panthers. Panthers win the draw. It was knocked in the bench area. 40 seconds now left in the game. I have to go for our game star. Bruce Crozier puts it back to number 19. 19 dumps it in front of the slot area. Rob Lushner. It's on a good move. He scores! Well, I think that's all she wrote. It's all over but the crying now. 10 seconds now. They'll have one more face-off, and that'll do it. The man who just scored will have to be our game star, Rob Lushner, Sport Cup player of the game. A little bit of disgust there on Streets Marauders. Face-off, drop the ball, 2-1. That'll be the end of the game. There you see it. The end of the third period, final. Panthers 9, Marauders 3. Thanks for joining us here on Cable 10 for our game of the week. It's Paul Badham, Joe Felice.
Hope that very shortly we will forward with a program and with recommendations, and we hope that the Mississauga City Board of Trade and all the business associations in Mississauga will be very much involved in the promotion of our city as a tourist area.
Just to add to that, because you mentioned the Great Salmon Hunt, I wanted to tell you that we are just at the beginning of a major study of the Port Credit Harbor area, and if Councillor Kennedy was still here, he would want to tell you about that. As the councillor for the balance of the waterfront in Mississauga, I would like to say how very excited we are about the Port Credit Harbor study. It is focusing on about 7 different aspects, not only the recreational boating, the commercial boating, and certainly the fishing, which are self-evident, but also the tourism aspect in particular, bringing housing, residential development back down to the waterfront. Now with the closing of the Texaco refinery, and thank goodness the final exit of that facility, and I don't say that out of lack of appreciation for the number of jobs it's created over the years, but it hasn't been creating very many jobs, about 60 for the last 10 years. So we're going to look forward to having that land reclaimed and developed to bring back a residential use in combination with the commercial retail redevelopment in the Port Credit area. So that one fairly large area of the city, actually, when you look at the overall site study to be studied, will certainly provide a great response to the subject of tourism generally. It's a magnificent natural resource, the mouth of the Credit River, and we're looking forward to this study, which is the consultants have now been assigned for.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else? Frank, do you want?
I'd just like to add that we do have a substantial tourist industry that comes to the airport strip, attends our convention center in Mississauga, the International Center, and I'm sure there's some spin-off benefit to that, the Ramada Inn, the Cara Inn, the Hilton Hotel, and that does to some extent spread Mississauga's name around the world. And I think we should recognize particularly the International Center, our convention center, as an entirely privately operated business with no subsidy whatsoever. And when you compare with what happens there as to the one downtown, which the provincial government and Metro put about $80 million into, I think that we're doing things in a private enterprise way. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Another question? Oh, David Cook.
Mr. Chairman, the one thing that has concerned me about tourism, we're all looking at very many positive ways to enhance the tourism in the city. I found a negative, and I'm very frustrated, and I don't know who to talk to about it, because there's a company in Toronto that has these tourist machines that you've seen them in the plazas that you punch up, and that's sanctioned by the provincial government, but the provincial government tells me by contract they have very little say in the input into these machines. Next time you go to a shopping center, punch one up and find out where Mississauga is. You'll be glad to know it's in Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, David. Ted?
I think the Civic Center itself will be controversial, but certainly it will attract tourists. People will come and take a look at our new Civic Center when it's open. I was telling Council today, Paul, that Dr. Chant yesterday announced to the Mayor and Council of Niagara Falls, who are concerned about the Ontario Waste Management having an effect on their city's tourism, that in his opinion, in fact, the toxic waste site will be a tourist attraction for Niagara Falls. I don't know how anybody would pay a fee to get in to see that, but if he tries to sell us that story in Mississauga, I think we'll be prepared for him. I think private enterprise certainly needs to come to council with some dreams regarding tourists. We should have the private enterprise building the fun parks, the Canada's Wonderland type attractions. We have a lot of space here. We have a lot of land that's ready and able to be developed for some of those types of activities. I don't know if the market in the metropolitan or Golden Horseshoe area will support financially many more of those types of event-oriented play parks, but certainly our city has shown a willingness to listen to those kinds of proposals, and perhaps jointly with a city property we could work with private enterprise to ensure that one of those establishments take place right in this community.
Thank you, Ted. Now, Steve, did you want to add?
Well, yeah, much of the comments I was going to make have been made, but I just would add very briefly that I think something that's important for the concept of tourism is not just to think of a salmon hunt or any one specific item, but if you look at our city core, there's not too many opportunities to get a glimpse of the skyline, but it's actually starting to come. There is a spot on the Cawthra Road Bridge over Dundas, so you can look right through between Iggy Caniff's buildings and you can see a skyline. We're starting to get hotels. That's going to attract conventions. We're talking about cultural aspects, things of that nature, museums, entertainment, all of the things that frankly, if you look at the last 10 and 15 years, what has happened to the City of Toronto and the growth that they have experienced in the tourism industry has been the result of many of these things which are private sector. They have to be encouraged through zoning bylaws and through us cutting red tape and cutting out the bureaucracy, but they are private sector, and I think that that's where we have to turn to really boost our tourism industry.
Rudy, I think did you want to say something?
Yes, Paul, I would like to just touch on an area of tourism that maybe we don't always think about, and that is safety. I think one of the fortunate parts of Mississauga is that it is a safe city. A lot of tourism will result, I believe, because of the good police force we have. it has always interested me, and Toronto has been similar to that, the number of busloads of people that come in from Buffalo and Detroit on weekends to shop and be in Toronto and be able to walk the streets. And I think that we are certainly no exception here in Mississauga. And as our city grows with regard to tourism, that's going to be a factor of people coming here to visit us. And I think it's an excellent factor.
Thank you, Rudy. May we go on to the next question, then? All right. Who's next at the mic? Would you identify yourself, please?
Bill Wilkinson, 10-year businessman, Mississauga. Advertising has always been a great goal for a lot of the small businessmen in most small communities. Small business these days needs as much help as they possibly can. I would like to know what's happening with the council's opinions on the mobile sign, the signs. Some consider them to be rather a blight on the streets. I consider it to be an effective means of advertising. Could you give me an idea what options have you concluded to make to the people who've had that media taken away from them?
Well, yeah, I just want to say that I guess the mobile sign bylaw has been around for a long time. I guess we've been working on it at least 6 to 7 years. And it was the desire of the council over those years, and the council has changed a bit, it was the desire of the council to try to get them under control. They were polluting our city, no question about it. When you go in front of a plaza and see 8 to 10 signs, it is a problem. We did have a permanent sign bylaw that took us also a number of years to bring about, I should say, and to implement, because it does affect businesses, and we're very conscious of how these things do affect the business world. We now have a permanent sign bylaw that we got into effect, and it had some very stringent controls, and we have lessened those stringent controls, but we did get control of the permanent signs. I worked on this very hard. I met with those who leased mobile signs, the manufacturers of mobile signs, and on many occasions, I can't remember all the meetings that I had with them, to say, look, we've got a problem, and if we don't get control of it, we're going to ban them, because that's one way of getting control of them, is to ban them and then bring them back in, if it's necessary, on certain conditions. And I can assure you, and as council knows, along with others on council, objected to a complete banning of them. But it came to the point that even those of us who were concerned about the little businessman, concerned woman that needed a sign to publicize their business, and we were also concerned that it was at an economic time that we wondered if this was going to affect businesses, when everybody's saying do something to encourage the economy, the recovery of the economy. But quite honestly, it came to a point where we just couldn't do anything about it but to pass a bylaw to ban them and to allow them only on very limited conditions. I believe that we will get back to a reasonable approach to this, but as a result of that, we now have what do you call them, the board signs, A-frames all over the city. So again, we have another problem. But I can assure you that we spent a lot of time on it, and it wasn't just a case of passing a bylaw some evening because we had nothing better to do to ban them. We tried to work with everybody concerned, and finally we came to the conclusion that we had to go ahead and practically ban them. But we're coming back with a licensing bylaw and so forth to try to meet the needs of the small business people as best we can.
Thank you. I think a number of councillors want to speak on this. Let's start over here. Frank?
Thank you. Council has been working on it. I'm chairman of the bylaw committee, and it's been working on the mobile sign bylaw for about 3 years now. And at one point in time, a citizens committee composed of representatives of the 3 business associations and 3 business improvement associations in the city, that's Clarkson, Port Credit, and Streetsville, plus representatives from the plazas, plus I believe there was another couple of citizen members, actually made a recommendation to council that the signs be banned outright completely, the same as they are banned in Etobicoke and in Oakville. However, council did modify that, and we do now permit them on a special occasion basis. My own personal view is they should be banned completely. I see the alternative as being the readograph signs, which can be changed quite readily with a proper installation. One of the main objections is that we now require new businesses building and starting up to put in extensive landscaping and make their premises really attractive, and then we obliterate it all with these mobile signs. So that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Yes, here's an issue where business themselves are not really consistent on their approach. Quite clearly, we've had both representations to council. Those people that feel that we should stay out of it and let those businesses that want to put mobile signs in do so. And we've had the other side of people saying, hey, it makes the city look dirty, it makes it look unattractive. And as Frank has says, at a time when we go to a great deal of difficulty and trouble and your expense to make sure that a new business park or a new commercial establishment looks good, it's pleasing and it's attractive to draw customers into it, what we end up with is a multitude of mobile signs. One thing that I think that I'd like to just repeat, because it was one of the things that was discussed I think a little bit at the seminar, and that really is to some degree the legitimacy of the people that were using, not all the people, but some of the people that were using the mobile signs. We had a certain element of unfair competition. We've got people who are renting or providing or dealing in retail space in industrial areas. They were paying industrial rents, not retail rents, in retail zoned land, and taking advantage of that with the use of mobile signs because they didn't have the type of frontages. And I think you can understand the situation there. Someone who is in a retail zoned area who is paying higher rental for that particular space or paid higher square footage costs for a particular building, all of a sudden was seeing some of their trade going to someone in a kind of a bandit situation operating out of an industrial area using mobile sign to attract customers. As well, we had situations where people were paying a good market value for high exposure retail space, usually adjacent to high volume traffic. And then we had other people who were not prepared to spend that kind of money, people who were either off the road or internal to a particular site, who then demanded even better exposure by having mobile signs out in front of the permanent signs that the people paid the extra money for their premier space. So it's got to be fair competition, not unfair competition. And I think some of the people, and again I'll specify some, not all, some of the people who've been crying the loudest about the abandonment of the laissez-faire attitude on the mobile signs were those people who really take advantage of it.
David, you want a mic?
Sorry. So here's one. Sorry. I think the people can see the divergent points of view. Council, as the mayor indicated, though, thought that it would be imprudent, especially in the recession, to come down hard, despite the theoretical frame and the problems that we had and all the reasons for banning them, and put people out of business on principle. It just didn't seem to weigh heavily enough with council. I think that one of our difficulties is swinging from one extreme to the other. It's the exception that have created the pollution, if you will, have used that term, with the signs along the Dundas, I think in particular, in the old strip plazas and so on where we've had them. To take that isolated problem and try to resolve it, we had to have a structure across the city. We have had a lot of people have gone from the mobile sign to the permanent sign with the readograph. But part of the difficulty is that our readograph feature in our permanent sign bylaw may not be adequate for the solution, especially someone with as limited eyesight as I have. I can't read them and get the message that they have. So as a result of coming down hard, while we have got rid of the mobile sign, the A-frame has come on the scene, and it's infinitely worse. And of course, we now have trucks pull up with the whole siding in the signs. So I think that we have to recognize that whether we like it or not, people need signage, and that we have to cooperate with the industry to deal with that. One solution, one of the worst, was the plaza just south of Dundas on Highway 10, and what we have done is modified the permanent sign requirement to only have one major sign, and we've allowed them to have two. And we've had a disappearance along with the stick, the prohibition, has been the adaptation, and we've actually modified the impact of the permanent bylaw. And I think there's going to have to be that kind of give and take across the city, and I think, as the mayor said, that's really the intent of council.
Thank you. David Cook. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of the things that I dealt with when I was chairman of the bylaw committee for the 2 years before Councillor McKechnie, who is now taking that role, as a chairman of that committee and also chairman of an ad hoc committee that was set up to deal with the mobile sign issue, in which we handed down some recommendations. We met with businessmen, and we met with the representatives of the business improvement associations throughout the city, and also with owners of shopping centers and merchants. And unanimously, they did not want these mobile signs, or if at least some control on them. One of the problems you're facing with is probably better illustrated with the small plaza on the northeast corner at Highway 5 and 10, just a little few yards east of 10. There's about 8 stores in there, and I think at one time there was 10 signs. You know, it gets that ridiculous. The sign pollution itself of the mobile sign, when you drive down the road and you can't see the fascia signs of the stores in the plaza, then that becomes an unfair situation for the store owner, the small businessman, because his fascia sign is being blocked by a mobile sign that is right up at the front of the road. So it really is a fact. I had more calls from businessmen complaining about the fact that we're in a small plaza. A mobile sign by Joe next door has been sitting there for 1 year and taking up a parking spot. There's wires in some cases that went across the parking lot, and every time the snow had to be cleared in the shopping center, the wire broke, the lights went out, and so on. So there were a lot of problems with them, and we had to address them all. But I think essentially what we've come up with now is what I would consider a fairly workable bylaw, which will allow businessmen to have mobile signs for certain periods of time. The problem with that bylaw, and we're looking at it right now, is the fact that it can only be for licensed operations. In other words, a licensed retailer that rents mobile signs. If you own a mobile sign, you can't put it up, but you can go out and rent one. So there's some problems there that we're working with for the licensing regulations. It's not going to be ended by any stretch of the imagination. The sign problem will always be there. The mayor mentioned the A-frame signs, but I'll just leave you with 2 thoughts. The one point that always comes home is that we require small businessmen to put in fairly extensive landscaping, and that's costly. And when you then have mobile signs taking that landscaping and just destroying it. In front of me.